I've had some issues with my recording equipment. My microphone is sort of on the fritz, so I hope this works. It's one of the reasons why I haven't been posting so often. I wanted to talk about essentially two things. First is a realization I've had recently that my time here in Japan will leave me changed forever. For absolutely ever. It is incredibly isolating where I'm at. And this is both a good, well, mostly a good thing, I suppose. Not really both of anything. It is a good thing. It forces me to consider myself in terms of perhaps like a sacred desert encourages a sacred religious pilgrim to reflect upon himself or herself. It's an opportunity really to ask big questions in solitude and not really worry about what other people think, to really come to grips with reality and in the way that you know how to. And I found that to be very positive, and so I believe now more than ever that I will come away from Japan with a very different attitude about life. I actually bought a skateboard the other day. That's a little weird for me. I bought a skateboard with the plan to learn how to skateboard and then to move to LA in the next year. I've been informed that my contract has been renewed rather, and that I can sign it within the next few days. Hopefully it will appear in my mail slot soon. So after being here for a year, I would have saved enough money if I continued to my current budget to pay for an apprenticeship, a film apprenticeship in LA. This is something I'm very excited about. I want to continue in this direction with the idea that and the skateboard, right? The skateboard is to skateboard around LA, so I don't have to buy a car. We'll see if that actually happens. I have a car in the States. My parents are, of course, using it now. Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, how are we doing on time? Oh dear. Okay. Right. So I've changed in little ways that I think will be much more apparent as time goes along, when I'm able to make more decisions based on sort of my mental landscape as it is now, as opposed to what it was before I came to Japan. I think you'll see a very different person. It's a good thing though. It can be very isolating here, not knowing the language as well as one needs to in order to have many local friends. But it's good. I'm able to reflect on a lot of different things. The other thing, and of course the title of this video is Confessions of an Anarchist. What's that all about? I'm talking with a viewer on the video I made about pacifism, and he's debating terms with me right now. And aside from that discussion, it got me thinking again about pacifism, and as we're discussing terms, and he hasn't brought this up quite yet, and I want to make this video just to sort of prove that I've come to this conclusion before he said anything, and that is that ultimately you cannot be a pacifist and believe in government at the same time. You must be an anarchist if you are going to be a pacifist. Now, if you can't make that jump in logic with me, that's what I hope to talk about in the remaining few minutes of this video. Essentially, government, you have to understand, you see, is a form of coercion, and it's really nothing other than that. When you talk about Locke and Hobbes, these people conceive of this theoretical state of man that they call the state of nature. And in the state of nature, life is brutish, nasty, and short. And it's in this state that people then band together and say, well, wait a second, we can work as a cohesive group and have the social contract, as it's known, to have this system of do's and don'ts that we can all benefit from. And we will say that, okay, you, the tribe leader, will have the authority to punish someone that violates that social contract. And so thus the idea of government was born as the appropriation by public consent, the appropriation of power, the appropriation of coercion, I suppose, proper use of violence and force, these kinds of things. And it's in that we see the conundrum between pacifism and any form of government, because any form of government will be coercive force. Why do you listen to the government? Because the government can throw you in prison. That's really all that there is to it. The government can take away your home. The government can kill you. The government, sentence you to death. The government can do all sorts of nasty things to you. That is a form of coercion. And to support government is to ultimately support a platform that is divorced from a pacifist platform. So if you want to be truly a pacifist, you must also be an anarchist. And now anarchy, or anarchism, which is very strange, isn't it? It's an ism based on lawlessness. But whatever. It's always struck me as sort of odd. I've never really understood it. But ultimately, I find myself personally as a person that can be moral towards you and good towards you, not because of a religion and not because of government coercion. It's just simply because I'm come to a rational conclusion of morality. And but not everyone sees the world this way, and so government seems to be a necessity, doesn't it? Even there, if everyone came to the realization that morality was rational and operated on a moral stance similar to what philosophers of the past, and arguably myself, though that could be wrong, but certainly philosophers of the past that have seen morality as a thing of simply reason, and rather than participating in moral action because of, say, afterlife payoff or damnation or fear of damnation or being incarcerated in some way, that they are moral simply because they see the rationale in it. And if everyone was like this, there would be no need for government. And the quote goes, and I forget who says this, but if men were angels, then there would be no government. Or so long as men aren't angels, there will be government, or something to that effect. And it's very true. It's very true. Ultimately, though, I believe that everyone can come to grips with the fact that we all ought to be moral, and we all ought to understand what morality is and what it's about, and that morality is objective. Not everyone agrees with me, though, but I believe that there is a time in which, at least theoretically, we could conceive of the possibility of an entire world of people, an entire community, no matter how big or small, I suppose, but at this point, as global as the world is, it would have to be a global community. That we all decide that yes, morality is a reasonable thing, and in doing that, the necessity for the coercive power of government is alleviated. And in that, we create a sort of anarchy. Now, we still have to give each other services. We still have to give each other goods. We still have to render certain services for each other in order to work in a society. So in this, anarchy is not to be seen as an anti-social sort of thing, as a lot of sort of, you get the notion of like a punk skater in your head when you think of an anarchist as an antisocial kind of guy, but that's really not the case. I think what we see, or what we have in the end, is really this form of capitalism in an anarchist world. That is to say that value is the dictator. Value is the governing principle of everything. And value, of course, is something that we attribute to individual things, and so that we all are governed by our own needs. And knowing that if we rendered services to other people, we can more easily facilitate our own needs. And in that, we have the I forget exactly what it's called, but it's something that couples capitalism with anarchism.
And so talking with this individual, to bring this full circle here, talking with this individual, it made me realize that if you want to be really a pacifist, you can't really stand for government, because government stands for violence. They stand for coercion, and coercion is without, is always going to be violent in some way. It's either threatening violence or, or causing it, and that's not, of course, a pacifist idea. So to be a pacifist, it would seem to me that you have to be an anarchist, and in the best of ways, as far as I've researched it, and I could be wrong in this, is that you would fuse the idea of anarchy and capitalism. However, before I have run out of time completely, I don't think this is going to be realistic in our real world. So the best choice is a libertarian standpoint. Well, I hope you've agreed, or agreed. I hope you've agreed, but I hope you've enjoyed this ramble. We'll see you again soon. So take care, everyone.